Is it even possible in today's landscape in 2024 to get a job as an entry-level software developer? If you were to listen to the news and stories and all the doom and gloom, you might think the answer is no. But listen, I've been doing this for 12 years now. I've been teaching people how to code as well as how to get a job, and I can tell you the answer is no, it's not possible to get a job as an entry-level software developer unless you have a special guide that actually tells you exactly the steps that you need to follow to get the job as a software developer. So if you want to shoot yourself in the foot and go out on this whole journey all by yourself and lone wolf it with no real plan, of course it's practically guaranteed to fail. So listen, the good news is I have this guide. I've been doing this for 12 years. I have thousands of data points to work off of, and I know a system that actually can work. And the great news is I'm going to talk about this today, right now, for you for free on YouTube. So take notes, listen up, and let's go. So step one on this journey is a little bit short, but it is very important and a very critical way to get started with confidence. And step one is to be able to pick a language. Okay, so you need to pick a language with where to start. And this is very, very hard to do for a lot of people because the choices are overwhelming. There's so many different languages, and oh no, what if I pick the wrong language? What if I get started and I waste all this time and effort learning some language that no one is hiring for? Well, if only someone had done their research to show the actual popular languages out there and compared it against the type of competition that's out there, the volume of competition, and made a graph and a chart to give you the quote-unquote best language to start with. Okay? And I'm happy to say I'm that guy. I've done the research, I've run the numbers, I've crunched them, and I have a graph that shows exactly the jobs that are available versus the competition that's out there for each and every language. This might be hard to see, but basically the higher the bar on this graph, the better. Now let me tell you, I'm here to say that there's no actual perfect first language to learn, okay? Everyone has their opinion out there, but this is a data-driven approach. This is what I did to say, hey, what are the jobs? What is the languages that those jobs are hiring for? What is the competition look like specifically for entry-level jobs? So that's what this chart says. And it says down here, the Java programming language, not to be confused with JavaScript. JavaScript is over here. It's a big bad bar in the negative, okay? There's lots of competition with people out there who know the JavaScript language, okay? There's boot camps flooding the market everywhere with people teaching people the JavaScript language, and that is creating a lot of competition, and where you might be hearing the stories of, there's no jobs out there, I can't get a job. And especially learning something like JavaScript first, although it's a fine language and there are jobs available out there, going from JavaScript to another language can be a little bit difficult. So starting with something like the Java language, not only are there jobs available for this language, not only is the competition relatively low in terms of people who have learned that language, but going from the Java language to any other language is arguably much, much simpler than, say, you learning something like the Python language, which I think, or no, it's right here. Python is right here. The Python language is almost as good as Java, but in my humble opinion, after doing this for 15 years as a coder and 12 years as a teacher, Python, while being a sort of easier language to learn first, it's not that easy to go from Python to any other language. So that's why I think Java is king here. It is a great place to start. You can't go wrong. Now, step number 2 in our journey is about learning the fundamentals of code. So the fundamentals of code are actually deceivingly the hardest part of the whole learning how to code journey. This is where the absolute huge, majority of potential coders will fail, will just tap out and decide that this is not for them. They are just not smart enough. They're not this enough. They're not that enough. They're not whatever. The circumstances are wrong. The time is not perfect, and they're just going to bail out. And it's really frustrating for me to see this because I know that the majority of people out there can actually do this. They just fall victim to one of two things. The first thing is that they just don't have a resilient enough mindset. So if you know about this about yourself, that if you have a history of starting things and not finishing them, this is where you got to focus. This is where you need to spend time and effort and understand that your mindset is extremely important to be able to complete this journey. The second part where people fall flat is that they just refuse to actually learn how to problem solve. They think that problem solving is not something that they can learn. Again, this kind of ties back into mindset. So let me dive into both of those things, starting with the mindset. So having the right mindset when it comes to learning how to code is about accepting the fact that this is gonna suck, okay? It's gonna suck. If it didn't suck, everyone would be a coder and everyone would be able to, achieve the goals, and then we wouldn't get paid very much at all because everyone could do it, right? The reason why coders get paid so much is because this journey is difficult. Embrace it, love it, expect it, and accept that it's going to suck. Okay, that is what you need to go into this with the understanding of. You're not a special snowflake, right? I'm sorry to say, you might think that you are. You might think that this doesn't apply to you. You might think this or that, but then when the rubber meets the road, when you actually get into this journey and you realize that this whole concept of learning how to code is something completely different than anything you've ever tried before, and you might start to think, oh no, it seems like everyone else can do it. It seems like everyone else is smarter than me. It seems like maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I can't do this. Maybe I am not as good as I thought I could. Maybe I can't solve this problem. Maybe I can't this, can't that. And you get into this negative loop where it's almost like you create this outcome of failure because you're manifesting it in your own mind. You think that you can't, so therefore you can't. So go into this knowing that that is normal. Go into this knowing that every single person before you who has achieved this goal has gone through this exact same path, this exact same journey, this exact same mindset issue. But why were they able to do it and you can't? It is just a matter of accepting that this is the journey. This is what it feels like. You are not actually an idiot. Everyone goes through this. Okay, it is only the top 0.1% who actually can say with confidence, I learned how to code, it wasn't a big deal, and I was able to get out, I don't know what all the fuss is about. Okay, those people are the absolute minority when it comes to everyone out there. Everyone struggles. Okay, hopefully I'm getting this concept around into your brain, like, it sucks. Embrace it. So having said that, how do you overcome this? How do you actually just accept the fact that it's gonna suck? The best strategy that I've seen out there is to do this journey with other people. Don't do it alone. Do it with other people who are in the same boat as you, who are in the same situation. They too are learning how to code, and then you can commiserate together. You can cry together. You can complain about how hard this is together, right? You need a support group of people so that you can, talk to them and hopefully they're open and honest with you with the struggles that they're having. You have to do that, right? Because if you look at someone else and they're doing better than you, hey, that's gonna happen. But other people are gonna seemingly go faster than you. But really, why are they going faster than you? Probably because they're putting in more time and effort than you, right? So you need to be open and honest with each other about, hey, I put in 40 hours this week. And it's like, oh, I only put in 20. So obviously there's going to be a difference in the progression that's going to happen there. So you need to understand that you might not all be on the same level playing field here. So don't get discouraged when someone else is doing seemingly better than you are, because you have no idea what circumstances they have in their life that allows them to go faster. Or the reverse, if you're the one going fast and everyone else is going slower, realize that, hold on, those other people might start to feel like they're doubting themselves. So if you want to do them a huge favor, you can say, well, first of all, either you can help them, obviously you should help them, but second of all, you can say and reach out and say, hey, these are my circumstances. I don't have kids. I don't have to, maybe I don't have a job right now. Maybe I can focus 60 hours a week on this, whereas you can't. So obviously there's going to be a discrepancy here. So going with other people, doing this together as a community is incredible. And you don't really need a huge community either. You can just have, one or even two close-knit people that you are able to connect with. That makes the world of difference. So community helps. Don't go alone. Do it together. Those who, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's the beautiful quote that I've heard. Now, I mentioned there's actually two things that stop beginners in their tracks when it comes to learning how to code. The first is mindset. We just talked about that. The second is actually not accepting the fact that they need to be a good problem solver. Not realizing that problem solving is one of the only reasons why you get hired as an entry-level coder. You need to train yourself on how to become a problem solver. So let me talk about story around becoming a problem solver. So let me set the stage with, it's evening, it's myself and my wife are sitting down. My wife is in her chair and she plugs her phone in for this session. She's gonna be, scrolling on something, right? Scrolling Instagram stories or something like that, or Reels. She's sitting down, plugs her phone in, and hey, the phone doesn't start charging. Every other time that she plugs the phone in, it starts charging. So what's going on here? Why is the phone not charging? Well, she unplugs it, plugs it back in again, unplugs it, flips it around, plugs it back in again. Nothing's happening. Every time I plug it in, it starts charging. What's wrong? And at that point, she sort of taps out and gives up and says, I don't know what's wrong. There's something happening here and it's beyond my ability to figure out. So what she does, she turns to me and says, hey, it's broken, fix it, right? So that's her way of doing problem solving. And hey, it's good for her. It works, right? So I then have to engage my brain and say, okay, what's going on? And this is where this problem solving mindset can be applied directly to coding. And this is what businesses want from you when you are an entry level coder. If you cannot cannot problem solve, then you are just not a valuable programmer to them. So let's talk about it. Let's figure out how can we learn this skill set of being a problem solver. So what do I do? And I do this with the example of the phone being plugged in. I do this with any example of anything around the house, as well as exactly how I do coding and how I achieve the ability of, being able to create apps and full stack apps and everything from scratch. It's all problem solving. So how do I do it? Well, with the phone, I say, well, what do I know about electricity and how it works? And what don't I know, right? What I don't know is how the power gets from outside and then into my house, right? That is beyond my control. So if the problem is there, there's not a whole lot I can do but pick up the phone and call someone else. But, I can't really test that. So what can I test? Well, let me test it from the phone itself, right? We plug the phone in and the phone doesn't charge. So is it a cable? I don't know. Let's try switching out the cable. Let's try plugging in another cable. We plug in a new cable and then the phone still isn't charging. Well, the likelihood that two cables are broken is pretty low. It's not impossible, but it's pretty low. So let me try and rule out that as being the culprit here. So what could be broken? Well, the phone could still be broken, right? That's sort of the first spot is there something in the phone that's stopping it from charging properly? Is there lint in the hole in the plug? I don't know, right? So let's, can't really, well, I guess you could. If you have another phone, you could plug another phone in, and if that one starts charging, then hey, it's probably the phone is the problem, right? There you go. Well, let's go backwards a bit. Where is it being plugged into? Well, in this case, it was being plugged into a power bar, which was then being plugged into the wall, right? So the power bar, actually, we had lost power overnight, and the power bar has an on-off switch. So it was off, right? You got to click the button on the power bar to turn it back on, right? And then voila, it fixed the problem. But let's say this wasn't the power bar that's the problem. It's plugged into the wall. Well, if it's plugged into the wall and it's not working, well, do I have power in the rest of the house, right? If the lights are on everywhere else, well, then maybe it's just that outlet. We have two outlets. Is it just the top one that's off and not the bottom one? So let's switch it to the bottom one. Do they both not work? Well, then maybe it's a breaker problem. Maybe the breaker got tripped or something like that. I need to flip, So there's all these situations where you go through and you go backwards in the chain of how does the electricity come from outside my house into the thing that I'm plugging in, right? That I want to have charged. So that is the step-by-step testing each step problem-solving approach that can be used with anything in life. You take that concept and you apply it to coding. Hey, the code doesn't work. Well, what do I know and what don't I know? And if I don't know something about the code, well, then either I learn it or ask for help, right? That's where things like coding boot camps or being in university or some sort of formal schooling can help because you have people to reach out to. Problem solving is something that you need to get good at, and the only really way to get good at it is to get reps over and over, practice again and again and again with problem solving, and eventually you'll get good at it. It is the exact reason why programmers will often become the IT support for their entire family, right? If you've been a programmer and you've learned this stuff and you've ever received a phone call from someone saying, hey, my printer's broken, can you fix it? Why do they ask you? You're a great problem solver because you probably have a way to figure it out. You know how to use Google, you know how to do this and that. So that is the skill set that employers want from you. And it is not impossible to learn this skill set. You're not born a problem solver, right? When you're born, you can't do anything. There's nothing you can do as a baby. So this is not something that is just, boom, you're born with it. This is something that you learn, you gain as a skill, which can be practiced, right? So with a good mindset and the ability to practice problem solving, guess what? You can make it through the hard part of the first part of learning how to code, which is learning the fundamentals of coding. So, and I also want to say before we move on to step 3 in this process, learning the fundamentals of code is actually harder, in my opinion, and in the real world data that I've seen, than the second part, right? Once you understand the fundamentals of coding, you understand how if statements work, how for loops and while loops work, how variables work, how functions work, and how code flows, and how to debug. The debug, going through your code line by line and understanding how the variables change and understanding how to read some code. Like, that is the hardest part of learning this entire thing. A lot of people think that, oh my gosh, if this part is hard, imagine how hard it is going to be when I have to start making full web applications, right? And learning whole different frameworks and different languages. And oh my gosh, like, I can't even do the basics. How am I possibly going to do the advanced stuff? But again, mindset. Flip it around. The actual advanced stuff is the fundamentals. That's the hard part of learning how to code. So a lot of people trick themselves into thinking that there's just no way that they can do it, right? Because you're starting with the hardest part. Remember that. Keep that in your mind. Accept that this is going to suck. Cool? Cool. Let's move on to the next part. All right, so step 3 in this entire process takes a little bit longer. I realize the fundamentals is shorter, and that might be, it could be equal. It depends on the person, but step 3 in this whole process is to elevate yourself to the status of a full stack developer. Oh! The full stack developer is someone that I don't want to say you should aspire to become, but I think it's a great target to shoot for. Why? Well, when it comes to full stack development, there's a survey that goes out every year. There's a Stack Overflow survey. You might have heard of Stack Overflow. It's a very popular website for people getting answers to coding related questions. It's quite famous. Every coder who's out there who works in the real world knows what Stack Overflow is. So Stack Overflow puts out a survey every year and they survey all the developers. So it's a huge data pool, right? It's hundreds of thousands of data points. And they look at the people who are employed and what they say their job title is. And the very tippity top of that whole list is full stack developer, right? Full stack is the lion's share of the job. It's like jobs. It's like 80% or something of the jobs are full stack. And then the next one down is back-end developer, and then the next one down is front-end developer, and then the next one down is like, mobile and, other. Essentially, it's all the other game programmers. The vast majority of jobs available out there are full stack development jobs. So that's why I like to emphasize here in step 3 on your journey is to focus on learning full stack once you have a solid foundation on step 2, which is the fundamentals. So step 3 is full stack. So what does that mean? That just means you include a front-end language with a back-end language and a database and connect them all together. Again, I'll say it. Front-end language, back-end language, a database, and figure out how to connect them all together. So in the world of the Java programming world, because I recommend Java as a great language to learn first, the ecosystem with Java and full stack is such that you will probably leverage something like the Spring suite of technologies. Spring offers something called Spring MVC, which is something on the server side that glues together the server with the back end with the front end. Okay, so Spring is great for that. Spring also has something called Spring Data JPA, which glues the back end to the database. Okay, so that's the sort of gluing parts. There's sort of 5 aspects to full stack. There's the front end, there's the back end, and then there's the database, and then there's 2 that sort of glue everything together. So Spring offers the glue, right? That's what how I like to think about it. So it's a great place to start. If you're looking at Java, I highly recommend the Spring suite of frameworks to be your glue. And then an actual database might be something like SQL. SQL is by far and away the most popular database out there, and it's, you can't go wrong learning SQL. There's different variants and whatnot, but I think you can pick any of them and you'll be fine. I use MySQL, but I'm not going to die on that hill. It's just a great version of SQL to use. So MySQL is a great one. You can also use something that is called NoSQL, which is not only SQL. There are ones called like MongoDB, which is a slightly different way to do it. We can argue and talk all day long about what's the best one. There's no best one. Pick one. I like to pick the one that's the most popular, that opens up the most opportunity for you to get a job. The most jobs want you to know SQL, and hey, if a job happens to come up and they want you to learn Mongo, well, that's why you've learned how to be a problem solver, right? Problem solvers know how to learn new technologies and new frameworks. Congratulations, you are capable of doing that. Awesome. So on the front end is typically HTML, CSS, JavaScript, right? And pretty much for the vast majority of everything, that's what you need to know for front end. There's a whole bunch of noise out there about what different versions of Java, or not versions of JavaScript, but what flavors of frameworks of JavaScript. There's React, there's Angular, there's Next, there's this, there's that, there's Vue. There's a billion different ones. Don't get bogged down in that. Again, look for where's the most popular one, lick your finger, put it in the air and say, the most popular one is, maybe React. Cool, learn React, right? You never know what job opportunities are gonna come up that are actually going to require you to know these different languages and frameworks. You can't really predict it with any sort of 100% accuracy. The best thing you can do is learn the popular ones, and if you need to learn another one, that's perfectly fine. Because trust me when I say, I've had so many graduates come through my boot camp and get jobs, and the jobs they get might not be in the exact technologies and the exact frameworks that I have taught them in the boot camp that they have learned, right? Why did they get hired then? Why did they get hired as PHP developers? Why are they hired as Python developers? Why are they hired as, C++ developers or whatever? They just know how to problem solve. They've learned the fundamentals of coding, and they have been able to become good problem solvers, and they know how to code as a full stack developer. They know how all the 5, aspects and all the glue and everything comes together at a high level. That's what you need to know. It's not any more complicated than that. So learn full stack. It is a great place to start because that is where most of the jobs are available. Now, if you specifically are someone who's like, no, I want to do game development, or no, I specifically want to do mobile development. Well, okay, there's not as many jobs available for that. And if you go into it with that mindset and understanding that that is the situation you're putting yourself in, then cool. You do you, brother. That's the name of the game. Just understand the circumstances you're getting yourself into. If that is your goal, if that is your dream, then make it happen. Cool. So, moving on, we got step number 4. Now this gets into the juicy part, which is actually getting a job. Woo, this is the hard part. When it comes to getting a job, there are 2 aspects that you need to become good at. Step 4 and step 5. In step 4, it's actually marketing. You might not have guessed it, but there's a dirty word we're going to talk about, and that is marketing and why you need to become a great marketer. Going back to this diagram, as you can see, the get a job portion with step 4 actually starts kind of at the same time as you're doing step 2 and step 3. So that means that you're going to start getting a job while you are still early in your learning how to code journey. Why, Trevor? Why would I start getting a job when I'm brand new to coding and I don't know anything about coding yet and I don't have any sort of full stack knowledge? And what are you talking about? This is terrible advice. This guy knows nothing on the internet. Blah, blah, blah. Angry comments. Put your angry comments below if you disagree. Go for it. I love it. So why am I suggesting that you do this? Well, when it comes to marketing yourself as a programmer, you have to start early because at first you're probably going to kind of suck at it, but I have a good little strategy for you that I'll talk about in a bit. But getting the word out as early as possible is the name of the game when it comes to being a marketer. This applies to you being a programmer and trying to get a job as a programmer, as well as if you're building any company, right? I have about 15 years of entrepreneurial experience at this point, or I guess 12 years of entrepreneurial experience at this point, and I know that you don't wait until your product is finished before you start marketing that product, okay? Same concept applies here. You gotta market yourself before you are actually fully ready and confident and ready to rock on the market as a full stack, Java web application developer, okay? So my advice here is as you are learning how to code, you're going to be creating GitHub repositories, right? Or wherever you host your code. You're gonna be pushing your code out into the interwebs, and you're going to be showing your work or having a portfolio to be able to show your work off for the world to see. And as you are going through that journey of learning how to code and creating these repositories, it's just a word for creating the projects, you're going to want to advertise the fact that you are going through this journey. The easiest way to market yourself without sounding really salesy and cheesy is to just talk about your journey. Talk about the good times you're having, talk about the hard times you're having, talk about the accomplishments you're making along the way, talk about what you are learning. Share that with the world. Go on LinkedIn and post about this. At least weekly, if not every day or every other day, you should be posting on LinkedIn about your journey, sharing screenshots of your code, talking about the things that you're learning and not learning and frustrated with, and just talk about the journey. Because while you're talking about the journey, put yourself in the mindset of a potential recruiter, a potential hiring manager, a CEO, a CMO, a CTTO, or whatever the different, 3-letter acronyms are for all these different positions that are out there that could potentially see the messages that you're putting out and say, hey, I like this guy, I like this girl. They are sharing their journey and it seems like they're learning a lot. Oh wow, I didn't even know that about coding and now they're learning it. That's interesting. I can see that they're motivated. I can see that they're sticking to it, right? There's a whole bunch of things that can be gleaned, that can be learned without you explicitly saying it, right? As a hiring manager that might be on LinkedIn seeing these posts, they might say, well, this person's posting about this, so therefore they're on this journey of learning how to code, and I can see on their LinkedIn profile they're not employed as a coder. Maybe they're looking for employment. I've had students graduate from my boot camp and get a job without ever asking for the job. Someone has actually was asked and invited to have coffee with a CEO of a company because this particular student was sharing, stuff on the internet about their journey and whatnot. And the CEO saw these posts, invited this student to have coffee. They had coffee together. This student never asked them for a job and was offered a position because of their not only their expertise with respect to the coding stuff that they were sharing, but also because they had domain knowledge. They had specific knowledge about that the business was working in. So for example, if you are someone who's an expert in, making pizzas or something, right? And you also are sharing your journey about learning how to code, well, there might be pizza shops that might be interested in hiring you as a developer because you have industry experience around pizzas. I don't know. That was a bad example. Maybe, let's say you have experience in the medical field or something like that. You were a nurse for 10 years or something like that. So you know exactly how the day-to-day interactions with patients and nurses, how they go and whatnot. And there is a software company that has medical technology that is specifically tailored to hospitals or something. Well, guess what? Not only do you have the expertise with coding, but you have domain knowledge already. You are in the day-to-day with nursing. You know exactly how it works. That is valuable. Talk about it. Post about this on LinkedIn. Share yourself, share your expertise, share your journey, share what you're learning, this is marketing, right? And the best part is it doesn't feel salesy. You're just talking about what you're learning, right? And if you're consistent with it, there's so much that can be gleaned from the perspective of a hiring manager or recruiter where they will say, wow, I like this person. Maybe they're worth picking up the phone and having a conversation with. So having said that, above and beyond just the normal advice you'll hear, which is you gotta have a good portfolio. You gotta have, your I's dotted, your T's crossed. You have to have a nice resume. You have to, okay, fine. That's great to have once you're fully ready and you are able to, once you're further along your journey, that's great. But at the start of your journey, this is all you need to do. Start posting about everything that you're learning. Trust me, that is an amazing place to start. You'll be ahead of 99% of other people if you start right away. And if you haven't started yet, well, what's stopping you? Let's go right now. Get on it. After you've done watching this video, start posting some stuff on LinkedIn about you and your journey and what makes you special, and especially, what expertise you have in which domain as well, right? So whatever, industry you are most familiar with, talk about that as well as your programming. Cool? So let's say you get someone picking up the phone and talking to you, right? Someone picks up the phone and calls you. Someone reaches out to you on LinkedIn and starts a conversation with you. So any area where the conversation goes from the marketing realm, marketing is one to many, right? When you post on LinkedIn or you post on Facebook or you post on Instagram or you post on this, post on that, right? Wherever you like to share your journey, it's a one to many situation, right? Many people have the opportunity to read your message. Well, when it comes to someone picking up the phone and talking to you or sending you a message directly on LinkedIn or whatever platform, we've now gone from a one to many approach to a one-to-one approach. You're now talking to one human being and having a conversation between you and that other human being. So what is that called? That's called sales, baby. That's step 5. So once you've done your marketing, you're going to probably hit a point where you're going to be talking to people in step 5, which is sales. So this might be, again, it's another dirty word for programmers. We don't want to be salespeople. We're not here. We didn't learn how to code to be salespeople. But the reality is, the more you have the mindset of, well, I'm not a marketer. I don't want to market anything. I'm not a salesperson. I don't want to sell anything. That is one of the reasons why you're holding yourself back from getting a job. If your goal is to get a job, you have to be at least a little bit competent as a marketer and a little bit competent as a salesperson. It's unfortunate, but it is true. This is the world that we live in. So, how do we be a salesperson? In my sort of expert knowledge here with respect to the conversation of sales, it's that you need to be a good human being. You need to be someone who other people feel like they would want to hang out with, right? At its base level, that's really what we're talking about. Because when it comes to employers and hiring, I would say, and again, this is not exact, but roughly speaking, half of the hiring decision is this person a competent programmer? Do they have the prerequisites, or at least close to the prerequisites of the skill set they need to be a decent programmer at an entry level? That's actually only half the battle. And so many people place all of their time and effort into the one half of the piece of the puzzle, right? Because the other half of the puzzle that you need to put together to actually get a job is being a good human being. Being someone who is approachable, who seems like there's someone who you'd want to, the quote I hear is, hang out on a Friday and have a beer with. Are you someone who people would like to be around? That's really what the sales part is can you project this, and I don't want to say project confidence. Confidence is part of it, but you want to be able to come across as someone who would be nice to work with. When the person says, would I want to work with this person 5 days a week? If the answer is a hard no, there's no way I'd want to work with this person because you come off as abrasive, as a know-it-all, as a, I don't know, all these sort of negative things, negative connotations, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot and you're not going to get into those organizations. People don't understand how much emphasis is placed on, how does this person make me feel, hanging out with them for an hour doing an interview, right? So you have to remember, I don't want to say you want to be friends with this person and pretend like you're already friends, but that's sort of the trick that I use, right? I try to laugh, right? I try to be as comfortable as I possibly can in any sort of one-on-one conversation. I try to be open and inviting and happy. I try to be someone who would be a friendly person who you'd actually want to have a conversation with. And if you're not good at that, if you know that you're bad at that, start there, right? Because there's no point in going through all of this work if you are someone who is a pain to be around, who doesn't have many friends because people say that you're not fun to be around, right? It's unfortunate, but that is a very big part of the sales conversation here, okay? So that's the one-to-one approach that you need to be good at when it comes to selling yourself to a potential employer. But there's another aspect to sales that applies here, because sales doesn't just apply with respect to someone picking up the phone and saying, I want to give you an interview. Well, what if your phone is not ringing? What if you're doing your marketing, you're doing your one-to-many thing, no one's reaching out to you? Well, the other part of sales is going one-to-one with your friends and family, okay? Chances are, if you pick up your phone or if you just think for a while, you have friends and family around you, whether that's, close friends or acquaintances, or obviously direct family or indirect family, like, you have cousins, aunts, uncles, you name it, anywhere in your whole family you can think of, or friend group, where one of these people works already for an organization that probably has some sort of software as part of its core business, right? So someone works for a company that is a software company, or is at least, I want to call it, tangential to a software company. So maybe this is a company that doesn't develop software directly, but maybe they do testing for software, or maybe they do something with respect to software. So there's someone in your network that you will be able to do a one-to-one direct message reach out to this is a sales perspective. This is called outbound sales. You are reaching out to other people, and you could strike up a conversation and say, hey, you work for XYZ company that has this software product. Tell me about it. Like, what does this software product do? I'm interested. And then obviously, if this is direct family, you can say, hey, I'd love to work for this company. Who can you talk to in the company who can help, give me a good word to actually get me an interview for this company, right? That is, I think 75% of my students who've actually been hired got their job through this particular route. They reached out one-to-one to their friends and family and said, hey, I'm a programmer, I'm learning how to code. I see that you work for a company that has software development tied into it in some way, shape, or form. Are you guys hiring? Let's have a conversation. So this is a super effective way that, again, not a lot of people do, that allows you to go out and actually land job interviews, okay? So that's the sales and marketing aspect, and that's all the tips I can think of. Everyone thinks of networking. That's really what we're doing here, is it's networking when you're reaching out to your friends and family. Everyone thinks networking is a dirty word and that it's scary, but that's really all there is to it. Pick up the phone, or however it is that you communicate with your friends and family and your cousins and your brothers and sisters and stepsisters, stepbrothers, and whatever, aunts and uncles and everyone you can think of in your circle. How can you communicate with them to say, hey, I'm learning this skill set. I'm going to be a kick butt developer. I would love to work for, a software development company to prove to them how awesome I am. Do you have any openings? Is there anyone that you can talk to put in a good word on my behalf, right? That's, I don't want to script out the entire conversation. Obviously, you are going to know your relationship with these people a lot better than I am. So your mileage is going to vary with how you're going to deliver the message. But as long as you say, hey, I'm learning this skill set, I'm getting good at it, I really like this stuff, I think I'm going to be an awesome employee, maybe let's start the conversation now. Because that way the employer might say, hey, there's this up-and-comer that I might be interested in that, the other person, his uncle gives him, he thinks that, his uncle thinks he's a great dude, or her uncle thinks she's a great person, so she might be a great hire. However, they are going to need to learn XYZ technologies or languages first, and then, hey, maybe that's what you use to guide your learning, right? Your whole learning journey can shift a little bit into potentially learning those languages if the job opportunity is actually solid enough for you to learn that specific language and technology stack. Then, hey, that's the goal here. The end goal is let's get a job. That's how you can do it. Now, I want to hit you with a bonus step 6. So bear with me. Let's circle back to mindset, right? All the way back to step 1, which is learning the fundamentals of code. When you are learning the fundamentals of code, mindset is critically important. You need to understand that this is going to be difficult. It's difficult for a reason. It is difficult for everyone. The exact same thing applies for the job search, okay? I've had countless students get all the way to the finish line in terms of learning all the stuff about full stack developers. They can create their own full stack app from scratch. They have a portfolio, they have a resume, they have everything. But then when they get to the job search part, they say, oh wait, jobs are not actually just landing in my lap. There's not a lineup of employers begging me to hire me. Ooh, this is a little bit more difficult than I thought it was going to be. I'm just going to give up here, right? And it always blows my mind that people will go through all that effort just to give up at the, metaphorical 5-yard line, right? So use that same mindset when it comes to the job search. The job search is going to suck. The job search is going to feel terrible. It's going to feel almost impossible. And for every student that has ever gotten a job, for every person who's gotten their first entry-level programming job, it felt impossible and a hopeless cause all the way up until they got the job. And then I was like, oh, I did it. And it only took me 5 months. That wasn't so bad after all, right? In hindsight, it's always a lot easier than you realize. But while you're in the moments, it's going to feel awful because you're going to feel like you're being rejected a lot, right? You're going to feel like you're being ghosted a lot. And this is where I always recommend you follow up, follow up, follow up. So if you apply to a job, figure out some way to talk to a human being in that organization that you just applied to, whether it's through outreach on LinkedIn or on their page on their website. Maybe they have a contact us, some way to get your message in front of an actual human being and say, hey, I've applied to this job. Here's why I think I'm incredible as a fit for the job. Don't just say, hey, I'm a great coder. That's why I'm a great fit. I'm going to be a great coder for you. I promise, right? That's like the base expectation is that, yeah, you understand how to code, right? That doesn't make you stand out. Where you could stand out is, like I said, you have the domain knowledge. Look, I've been working as a nurse for 10 years and you're a medical technology company and I also know how to code. I think we can, put these together to be an amazing fit. I could be a huge asset for your company because of this, right? If you can get that message out to the company after you apply to it, and that's what you can do to follow up with the company. Don't just apply and then when you hear nothing, assume that that means no. It does not mean no. When you hear silence, silence does not mean no. A lot of the students who give up on this journey think that it means no. They say, Trevor, I applied to 600 jobs and I didn't get a single interview. And I said, well, how many did you hear back from? And they say, oh, like only a handful got back to me and said, no, we're not interested. So, 5 said they're not interested. And the other 595, I'm assuming they're just not interested, that they're all giving me the same answer. No, right? You have no idea what happened between when you applied to the job and if it even reached the eyeballs of a real human being. You have no idea. Maybe it got weeded out through their system for, some AI, removed it. You got to stand out. You got to prove that you really want this job. And if you just do the follow-up, if you just figure out a way to talk to a real human and say, I want this job because here's a significantly reasonable reason why I am a great fit for this job, right? Here's a reason why I actually stand out. Not, hey, I'm a great person, trust me. Oh, I really want this job. Or, oh, I really think I'll be great for this job. Or, oh, I really think that I'm a great fit because I understand how to code. All these things are not real reasons, right? Everyone has those prerequisites. What makes you stand out, right? Not everyone's going to have that domain knowledge. Who's going to know and be an expert in the field that this job is in. So talk about it. What else makes you different from everyone else, right? Talk about it. Deliver that message to them and follow up. I would say at least weekly, every week. Make a list of all the companies that you've applied to, and every single week, hit them with emails. And if you want to be good, switch the emails a bit, right? You switch out the first couple of sentences in the emails to be different every time. The rest could be the same if you have more that you want to say, but you at least switch out the first couple of sentences so it seems different. And then follow up relentlessly, right? Follow up until you hear back from them saying either, for the love of God, stop messaging us. Cool, fine. Or they say, hey, thanks for following up on this. I've been busy. I haven't had time. Let's schedule a call and let's see if you'd be a good fit. Because I want to say 90% of the time, they're just too busy. They saw it and they might have gone and gotten distracted and done something else, or they might not have even seen it. So reach out, follow up every single week. And that means that you're not necessarily applying to 600 jobs, right? You can't follow up with 600 people really easily. So narrow your focus to jobs that you really think that you really would be a good fit for, right? So that might be that might be 20, that might be 50, that might even be 100, but let's say 50, right? So it's, you gotta adjust your scales accordingly depending on whatever pool is available, right? If there's only 100 jobs available in your area, then fine, apply to all 100, but follow up with all 100. Do it. Don't apply to 1,000. I think it's too hard to follow up with 1,000. It's probably too hard to follow up with several hundred every week. All right? Unless you're really, really motivated, then go for it, man. You do you. So this is extremely important, right? All of these things, if you fail at any one of these steps, if you drop the ball in any one of these steps, you are going to severely hamper, you're going to severely limit your ability to achieve the ultimate goal, which is getting that first job. And let me tell you, once you have your first job, once you have at least a year of experience under your belt, going on and getting a second job if you need to, if you want to, hopefully your first job is great. Hopefully you can stay there for a long time and you'll be really happy and whatnot. But historically speaking, you want to kind of jump ship to the next job to get a higher pay. If that's you, if that's what you want to do, all the power to you. But getting the second job is so much easier, especially when you already have your first job, right? You're still getting paid, you're still doing programming, you're still working and doing the thing that you want to do, but maybe you can get better somewhere else with your second job. And trust me, it is so much easier the second time around, the third time around, the fourth time around, whatever the case may be. The first one is the hardest. Embrace it. Accept it. It's going to suck. But trust me, every student who's gotten their first job has always said, oh, okay, whew, that's over. I'm glad that's over now. I've got it. Wow, the future looks so much brighter. It's so much easier now for me, right? And that's where the whole rest of the journey, it's like, I don't want to say it's butter smooth, but it is so much easier. So stick to it. Don't get all the way to the 5-yard line and then drop out. Go into it knowing that the first part's going to suck. The step 1 of learning the fundamentals is going to suck. And the getting the job, steps 4 and 5, is going to suck. Okay, and when you go into it just knowing it's going to suck, and that's normal, and that is the experience for everyone, and you are not a special snowflake, then we can calm down, relax, keep our wits about us, and actually keep pushing through and keep doing the effort that's needed day in and day out, 20, 30, 40 hours a week of work until we ultimately reach the finish line, because it is then going to be an inevitability. Inevitably, you will cross the finish line, you will get the job offer, and you will start and become an entry-level developer and start the whole rest of your career successfully, high-paid, great career as a developer. Hopefully that was helpful. Now, if you like this stuff and if you want to learn more about step 1 and step maybe even 2, I have put together an entire playlist, an entire series that walks you through how I would create a web app from scratch, and I teach you as much as I can through the entire thing step by step. So wherever it is on the screen, go click, check out this playlist, and get started on the first step of the journey, which is learning the fundamentals of code. And I can't wait to see you in that next video.